All right, so we now discussed about how the power of our attention works. When the energy rises, it lifts our attention to the fourth state of consciousness, as we know, which is the higher spiritual realm where this all pervading energy exists. And raising our attention to that level by virtue of the energy rising inside us lifts us into the state of meditation. So, how do we actualize this in our meditation? The first thing that we do when we meditate every single time is raise our energy. And how to do this? There is a video on our site which explains it. But in short, we make 7 circles in a clockwise direction around our left hand and move it up till the top of the head and then tie one knot. And we repeat it 2 more times, tying one more knot each time. The reason that we do is there is a very specific purpose behind this way of doing this, raising this energy, is that we energize every center and cause the energy, cause the imbalances and blockages also to get removed. And then we take it to that center, to that seventh energy center, and we are stabilizing the attention there. That's the purpose of tying that knot. And then we balance the left and the right channels so that the entire subtle system is in balance and the energy is up. That is the purpose of raising the energy. So this is the step number 1 that we should do. Step number 2 is we have to watch our attention in the 2 states, meaning number 3 and number 4. The third state, which is a state that we always operate, our attention is convoluted and it's containing a number of thoughts, uncontrollable often, coming from the past, coming from the future. Our mind is just wavering. That's because this canvas of our attention is completely convoluted and muddled up with our thoughts. So as you are meditating or doing this a session or act of meditation, what we need to do is watch for how the attention feels or looks when we are in this third state of consciousness. That's the first one. And then gradually, as the energy rises and raises our attention or consciousness to the fourth state, the state highest above that, where no thoughts can exist, then how does it feel? So it's a sort of a gradual process of clearing of our attention, right? So that's the next step. So the first state is we start off, we assume that we have raised our energy, started this process of elevation of our attention. We watch our attention that is muddled up, gradually see the thoughts recede, right? And we are giving it support by focusing our attention more and more on the seventh center. The important thing to remember also is we do not do anything cognitively to lift our attention. Now, that is not something that happens in the state of meditation. If you have mindfulness or if you have other concentration techniques, they apply something, some activity cognitively. We don't do that. We use or we allow the power of this energy to happen, for that to happen spontaneously. That's the key difference over here. So which means that even as you're watching your attention being lifted, you have to really surrender to that energy. And that's where the spiritual component of meditation comes into play. And there is a scientific component here and there's a spiritual component. The scientific component is that the levels of consciousness are real. Our attention is real, right? Attention and raising our attention to the fourth state of consciousness is also real. Feeling it on our central nervous system is also real and scientific, right? Now, spirituality is also real, but it is subtle, right? So where the spiritual aspect strongly joins the scientific aspect is being able to acknowledge that it is the energy that is raising us from level 3 to level 4. And therefore, surrender to that energy and aid that energy and let it do its work, right? So once we do that, then it gradually takes us to the higher state or the fourth state of consciousness. And there we see our attention gradually becoming completely clear, right? So once we have reached that stage 3 or the step 3 that I've listed here, then is when you would enter the state of thoughtless awareness or meditation, right? Even when you're there now, in reality, what I'm saying is it's an ideal situation, right? That's what ideally should happen. But that's not what happens, and we all know that. We get into that state of meditation, but then thoughts come back. Why is that? That's because there are always dragging forces pulling us down back to the third state, right? All our conditioning, all our activities, all our life, whatever we have learned and whatever we have experienced are constantly pulling us down. Our emotions are pulling us down. Our thoughts, our mental activity, our knowledge, everything that's there is trying to pull us down, drag this attention back from level 4 to level 3. Then the energy struggles a little bit more. It does its work, again pushes it up. Then again it drags down. So this is exactly what is happening. And it's almost like a pendulum, right? You're swinging between 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, right? With the positive forces trying to keep it at that higher state. And I won't say negative, but these forces that we are usually subject to trying to pull it down, right? So step 4 here is the only way you're going to be able to stop that oscillation of your attention from 3 4 3 4 3 4 is to watch, right? To separate your attention from your thoughts, recognize where your attention is, and be aware that this is your attention and those are your thoughts, and the two are not the same. If you lose control of your attention, meaning if you are allowing yourself to get distracted and suddenly after 5 minutes you realize that you have been thinking for the last 5 minutes, that is a sign that your attention has lost its, or you have lost control of your attention and your thoughts have taken over, right? Ideally it should be instantaneous. The moment a thought comes, you should be there, right there, and saying, oh, there's this thought, but hey, this thought is not something that should impact my attention. I'm going to allow it to go away, right? That's exactly how you watch. Your attention should become part of you, but your thoughts should not become part of you, right? You should watch the thoughts, try to allow them to recede and go away. So that's really step number 4. Then a couple of other long-term steps, which is, now we know that it is the strength of the energy rising. Now imagine if you're raising up a tent, right, and you had a big, huge pole, right, which supporting pole that comes from the ground and it easily goes up. Obviously, the tent is going to go up much easier, right? It's going to be that much easier to lift that heavy tent and make it stand up. So it automatically implies that the more we nurture our subtle system, and specifically the central channel, which is the what is known as the Sushumna Nadi, or the parasympathetic nervous system, the wider it is, the more the energy can pass. Meaning, our analogy of the tent pole, the thicker the tent pole is, right? So if you keep your subtle system clean and strong and well nourished, then the energy is going to rise faster, thicker, stronger, and it is going to easily lift your canvas of your attention up, right? That's how when people have a great session of meditation, they're easily able to get there and stay there, because the pole is now thick and strong. It is able to keep and sustain that tent canvas of your attention up there longer, right? So that is the underlying root cause. So if your subtle system is weak, meaning if there are catches, obstacles in any of your centers, then the energy itself is struggling to rise, or there are a few strands, or in other words, you have a weak center or a weak core of your subtle system, then you will find that thoughtless awareness is a problem, which means you're again having heavier, longer oscillations. Now, a very important thing to note is, regardless of how many years or decades even people meditate, this oscillation is common. It is not a function of, oh, I'm an expert, I've been doing this for 20 years, so my attention is very strong, it just stays up there all the time. No, that's not really the case. The reason for that is, all of us have our lives outside of meditation. We do our work, we have our families, we have so many things to do. So we are subject to these forces where there is always an oscillation, or our attention tends to get more muddled up. But then the difference between people who have meditated for longer periods of time and have been more experienced is that they know how to extract themselves out of the messy situation. They know what they have to do to clear up their subtle energy system and to keep it healthy and quickly restore it back to balance. That is the only difference. It's not as if even expert or advanced level meditators do not have these oscillations, right? That's to be kept in mind, which is a good thing if you're joining us new, in knowing that as long as that is the only criterion, you should have a good quality of meditation like anyone else, right? Last but not the least, if you still find that the oscillations are there, then specifically for avoiding the origination of thoughts. So one is to work on your subtle energy system to make the core stronger, so that you are experiencing thoughtless awareness. The second part is to prevent the origination of thoughts, excessive thoughts. For that, there are two primary techniques you can use. One is foot soak, which cools down your lower energy centers and especially the liver. The second is cooling the liver explicitly by using an ice pack during your meditation. You can place it on the right side, upper abdomen, where your liver is. When the liver is cool, then liver is supposed to be the seat of our attention. You will find that this muddiness or a number of thoughts coming up will be far fewer, right? So those are strategies that you can use to cool down your system, and you can always find this, right? A simple way of expressing or understanding what I'm saying is, you'll find that when your body is heated up, when you're mentally stressed out, and you're doing a lot of activity, or you've had a long day, say 12 hours of waking, 14 hours of waking, or you've been doing some mental activity, intense work, you will find that your body is heated up. And then you'll find that you're tired, your attention is tired, and thoughts are just coming uncontrollably. Right? When you cool yourself down, when you sleep adequately for 7 6 7 hours, whatever, you get a good sleep, then your attention seems to be clearer. Why is that? Because your body cools down, your liver is cooling down, your mental activity is shutting down. Meditation should be able to give you the same thing in about 15 or 20 minutes. Of course, sleep is extremely important. Meditation is never comparable or a substitute for sleep. But you can, over a period of time, try to reduce the origination of excessive thoughts using these techniques. So that, in a nutshell, is how attentional control works in this technique of meditation. So now we're going to go to the meditation, and we're going to uh, go possibly not exactly step by step. And it's important that you understand this and don't take it as, okay, always step 1 2 3 4, because your thoughts can become excessive even if you're memorizing these steps. So we don't want it to be counterproductive and counterintuitive. So with that said, let's get straight to the meditation. I'm going to move to the meditation session now. So let's close our eyes. And because there's been a lot of talking and you've been listening to me, let's take a couple of moments to take our attention inward in complete silence. Now, the first step is to allow the energy to rise right from the base of our spine to the top of the head. So let's try and raise our energy using our hands. There are a couple of techniques, and you can use the technique that you're comfortable with. Raise your energy to the top of the head. If you're here for the first time, you don't need to do this. I will take you through a step during the meditation where the energy rises. As you're raising the energy, let's surrender to this power in all humility and request the power inside each one of us to lift our attention to the higher state of thoughtless awareness. Now, as this is happening, you may feel the tingling sensation or pulsations on your fingertips or even on the top of the head, which is a sign that the energy is rising or has risen and the subtle energy system is active and connected to this all pervading power. Now, let's take our right hand and place it on the crown of the head. Affirmations can be further used to cause the energy to rise to the seventh center. So let's, from our hearts, say this affirmation: please grant me the state of meditation. Please grant me my self-realization. Please grant me the state of thoughtless awareness. Now let's take our hands back on our laps, fingers stretched out, palms facing upward. Let's observe our attention and see where or in which state it is. If it is being convoluted with thoughts, or if it is clear, devoid of thoughts, sort of feeling like we are in a vacuum, and a sense of stillness, but still very aware. We can hear sounds around us and we are alert. Yet there should be no thoughts inside us. Keep watching your attention. At the slightest incidence of a thought, remind yourself that your attention is separate from your thoughts and that you don't want to get involved with the thoughts, and allow it to recede, allow the thought to recede and go away. Allow yourself and your attention to enter a relaxed state gradually, without worrying about your thoughts, just surrendering to this energy, allowing it to do its work. We can open our eyes now and at this point raise our energy to conclude the meditation. Now, hopefully that was useful and helpful in understanding how the attentional control works. A couple of last thoughts. We raise our energy towards the end of the session because we want to preserve this meditative state as long as we want, beyond just the meditation that we do. So that's the purpose of raising that energy. Ideally speaking, all our awareness, all the time that we are awake, if the energy is right up here, then that is the ideal state for human beings. Of course, it is extremely difficult, and that was the end goal of many of the greatest saints and yogis who lived in this world for hundreds or thousands of years. They had perennially, which means 24 by 7, all the time, wanted to be in that higher state of consciousness. And that was their goal that they were striving for. Unfortunately, very few of them could actually achieve it. So while that's an ideal goal, as normal human beings, people living in this world today, our goal is to, as far as possible, to stay in that higher state of consciousness. And even if possible, operate with our attention at that higher state. And that is different from the way we operate at our third state of consciousness. We will typically find that we are driven by a lot of intuition and a lot of clarity when we operate out of the higher state. So that's why we raise our energy at the end of meditation. Second thought I want to leave you with is that after sharing with you the way this attention works and how to keep it at that higher state, and that's the constant struggle that we will go through. So whatever you have learned today and whatever you have been practicing is just the tip of the iceberg. The real success comes when we increase the extent of our time, both during a session or during a day, as well as outside of it, in keeping that attention to that higher state automatically. That is the real sign of success. So as experienced meditators, the ultimate focus changes to how can we keep our subtle energy system clear and powerful, right? The rest follows. If we keep that in great health and we do everything to sort of aid the energy to move fast and as a thick strand of threads to the top of the head, then it's going to keep us there at all times. But that is the most difficult part. So we are constantly distracted, we are constantly bombarded by a lot of negativity in our day-to-day lives. But learning how to keep that subtle system healthy and dynamic and powerful is the actual game, is the actual technique that we need to master over a lifetime. So we have our whole lifetime to work on our subtle energy system to make it stronger and stronger and stronger. So that is the real challenge here. But then that's a very, very long-term process, and there are number of techniques and aspects of how to improve the health of the subtle energy system. The simplest of them is the collective meditation or group meditations are more powerful. If you have not discovered that by now, that's the simplest technique. Whether it's a session where you get some knowledge, or if it's a session of meditation, or typically the way we do it is we combine the two. Um, every bit helps in improving the quality of your subtle energy system and making it powerful so that each time it is much easier for you to stay at that higher state. That is basically the ultimate single goal of our meditation. So with that, we come to the end of today's session, and thanks for joining us. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next session of Discover Your Spirituality. Thank you.